Welcome to the worldwide free seminar of the Family Dog Project, live from Budapest. The event is proudly sponsored by Purina.
Okay, so welcome everyone. Actually, Adam and Anna spoiled half of my presentation, but let's pretend that you didn't hear anything. So I'm Judit Abdai, and today I will tell you how you can mislead a dog with the help of a remote control car, and why on earth is it important for anyone. So let's start from the basics. Many researchers around the world are interested about the social behavior of different species, how they behave in the presence of another individual, in the presence of a social partner. We can have many interesting questions about the social behavior of different species, but maybe the first one we should ask, who or what is a social partner? Based on many opinions and even the origin of the term social partner, it can only be a human or a non-human animal, but when we are talking about anything social, it can be only an animal. And yes, during the investigation of social behavior, researchers mostly use a conspecific as a social partner, apart from a few cases, for example, dogs. Dogs are really interesting from the viewpoint that they develop social ties both with their conspecifics and with humans, a totally different species as well. And because of this, because they consider two really different species as a social partner, we suggest that they are basically the perfect model species to investigate what decides that who is a social partner. It has been suggested that due to dogs have been selected to fit in the human social environment, the picture of the social partner in their mind have become more flexible. But this is just one side of the story. The other side, of course, is development. Dogs have a wide range of experiences with the human social behavior during their daily lives in many situations. And if we combine the two, so their flexible thinking about who is a social partner and their wide range of experiences with the behavior of a completely different species, we arrive to our suggestions that maybe what is important for dogs is the behavior itself and not who or what shows the behavior. So what we suggest is that dogs are able to recognize the familiar social behavior in an agent which they have never ever seen before in their life. So basically our question is that it's okay that the picture of the social partner in dogs' mind is really flexible. Now the question is whether it means that next to a dog they accept a human as well, or the message is simply that, okay, it does not have to be a dog. So these were our initial thoughts. Now we just need to do something with this. And here's one way to investigate the question. Dogs, we already know that dogs tend to follow the human cues, even if those are totally misleading. And the next experiment which I will present to you is the basis for our own experiment, so listen carefully. In this, experimenters offer dogs the choice between a smaller and a larger food quantity, and without any other cues, dogs tended to choose the larger amount of food, no surprise here. But what happens if a human, the owner, or a complete stranger indicates the smaller food quantity? Well, in this case, somehow, in half of the cases, dogs were followed the human indication. Why this is really important? It's important and interesting as well because during the whole test, dogs could see both of the food quantities. They knew that they can choose both of them. They had a clear preference toward the larger food quantity, but still they decided to follow the human communicative cues and choose the food quantity which was opposite to their primary preference. And this suggests a really strong social bias. So we started to wonder whether this social bias is restricted to human partners alone or not. And based on this, our insane question in this case, whether an unfamiliar, self-propelled, non-living agent can have a similar effect on dogs' behavior as the human partner in the former studies. You already heard about the UMO, so I think I don't have to introduce this. We used different partners, so we assigned dogs into different groups. We tested them with a human partner just to make sure whether we have the same special skills as the human partner in the former studies, so whether in our experimental setup we get the same results. As a UMO, again, we used a remote control car, but now, again, as in the former study, we used two types of UMOs. One was non-interactive and mechanistic, so it was basically a remote control car, nothing specific, but the other was more fun. It was interactive, communicative, and helped the dog to reach an otherwise unreachable food again. So what is really important that the two UMO looked exactly the same, but one was basically a self-propelled object and the other showed behavior which you can expect from a social partner. And also behavior which dogs could experience during their daily lives. So how the study looked like, we tested many dogs. We had to say goodbye for a few data due to several reasons. For example, we are unable to count until 6. We had 3 phases. The first phase was a baseline phase in which we just tested, we offered a choice between a smaller and a larger food quantity to dogs. It meant 1 versus 6 pieces of sausages to see whether dogs have an initial preference. And it is really important that right now I will only talk about dogs who chose the larger food quantity more often, so about dogs who showed a preference toward a larger amount of food. In phase 2, we introduced them to the different partners, and in phase 3, we tested again dogs with the 2 different food quantities, but now we threw the partner into the system as well. So here's how it looked like. The 2 food quantities arrived from behind an occluder to reduce the human influence on dog's choice, even in this case. And dogs could choose between the 2. And much to dog's regret, we removed the non-chosen plate. So it's really important to we repeated it 6 times to see whether dogs choose one of the food quantity more often, so whether they show a preference toward one of the food quantities. And what is really important is that this was the same for all dogs, so here there were no difference between groups. On phase 2, we assigned them to different groups. A few dogs interacted with a human, a few others with a non-interactive mechanistic UMO, and the others with the helper UMO. The human partner group was nothing special. The partner, I talked with the owner, petted the dogs, and I tried to behave as a human being, harder than you think. You're laughing, but it's really hard. The non-interactive UMO was the same, so it just moved around the room for 2 minutes. Pretty exciting. The helper UMO, however, was much more fun, and you already saw this as well in Anna Gergely's presentation. The experimenter put 1 piece of food into the cage, and the owner could let the dog go and try to get the food, of course, unsuccessfully. But if the dog looked at the UMO, it started to move immediately, so it was interactive. We used the same beeping sound to call the dog's attention, so the UMO was communicative and helped the dog to reach the food. Okay, so this was how it looked like the introduction of the different partners. In phase 3, again, there were the 2 food quantities, but now, right before the dogs could choose between the 2 food quantities, the partner indicated the smaller amount of food, so the food quantity opposite to the dog's primary preference. The human indication was this, so the food quantities arrived from behind the occluder again. The human partner went to the smaller amount of food, lifted up, and said, enthusiastically, and turned her back to the dog, who could just go there slowly and take the food. The humo's indication was basically the same, as similar as it can be between a remote control car and a human. It stopped right behind the food. We used the beeping sound to call the dog's attention, and the dogs again could choose between the food quantities. Again, we repeated it 6 times to see whether there's a change in dog's behavior thanks to the partner. It's important in the next slide. Okay, I get it. You can see with blue this phase and with brown phase 3. So on this slide, you will see some bars. I don't think that you can see, but here will be the human partner, here will be the mechanistic humo, and here will be the helper humo. And more the bars will be will be here. It means that the dogs of that group chose a larger amount of food, but if it's up here somewhere, then the dogs chose the indicated smaller amount of food. This is the baseline, so here there were no difference between dogs. All dogs had the same experience here. And what you can see here is that dogs who chose the larger amount of food more often, they chose the larger amount of food more often. Shocking. But what happens if we throw the partner into the system? Well, in case of the human partner, we saw the same as in former studies. So dogs tended to follow the human indication, but again, similarly as in former studies, dogs' choice did not reverse completely, but in half of the cases they tended to follow the human indication. However, dogs couldn't care less about the non-interactive humo. They continued to choose the larger amount of food. But what happens if we use the helper humo? Well, in this case, again, dogs' behavior changed, and half of the cases, somehow they started to follow the helper humo. However, as you can see, there's a difference between the magnitude of change in dogs' behavior. So what we see here that similarly as in many other studies, human partners have strong influence on dogs' behavior. But what's new here is that we also could see that somehow dogs were willing to choose against their own initial preference just to follow the helper humo. And what is really important here is that based on the results, it's not enough to just throw a self-propelled object into the system. It only happened if there was a specific interaction between the dog and the humo. But what's really important that we are not talking about days or weeks. It was basically a 10-minute long experience, with a partner which doesn't look like a dog, a human, or a cat, or any other species which the dog could have any experience during their daily lives. So what we suggest here that dogs, due to their wide range of experiences with a completely different species, humans, they are able to detect the similar behavior in an agent which they have never ever seen before in their life, and based on this they will show similar behavior toward the agent as toward the social partner. So to get back to our initial questions, what we suggest that the picture of the social partner in dogs' mind have become more flexible in a general way, meaning that dogs doesn't care about how it looks like, the embodiment, the physical appearance. What they care about is the behavior itself. And now we are talking about a social-like behavior of a non-living agent, a social-like contact. So now our only question which has remained is that then what does social really mean? So I would like to thank your attention, and I would also like to say thank you all of our owners and their dogs, because without them we wouldn't have a chance. Thank you.
Thank you very much.